Um, I think around March 2020, when we know that we now have a pandemic, and members of the Asian Canadian community either start actually experiencing racism, or they become very concerned about the rising, anti-Asian racism. They start actually talking to each other, and also they start reaching out to me, sharing their experiences, and also asking, what is it that the communities can do? Who's doing what? And whether we need to come together to do something. So I convened a meeting with people from across the country, 6 provinces, in the middle of April. And so the first meeting was attended by 70 people, and a week later, another, I think, 50 people. And people believe very strongly that we need to form a network where we can have a collective voice, so that our issue can be acknowledged and heard, and also we can actually work together to develop resources to support our communities, also to coordinate our efforts.
Yes, there's growing movement of racism, and we need to act upon that. And I know I've known Teresa for quite some time, and I know she was doing something exciting about this. She's gathering networks, and she's accumulating all of her close acquaintance to work with, to address this issue. And there needed to be somebody representing Korean community, and of course Canada, Korean community makes up a big portion of it. So I had a privilege of working with Teresa to represent what we believe in, and that needs to be disseminated to Korean communities.
First, we start with developing what we call infographics, like posters, because some of the material could be a bit too complicated for our community members. So we develop a number of posters, and so because a lot of people in our community are still asking the question, what constitutes racism? What is discrimination, right? Mm-hmm. What does it look like? So we have an infographic that explains from prejudice to discrimination to racism. Mm-hmm. And then we have an infographic that explains what is microaggression. Because a lot of, especially in Alberta these days, a lot of the attacks tend to be microaggression. Mm-hmm. People, calling you names, say inappropriate things, or they avoid you in the supermarket, or people shout at you in the neighborhood. And so we have some of that kind of tools. We also have a tip sheet to explain to people, what you do when you encounter a hate crime or hate incident. And so we, like you said, we also developed 4 comic strips, and hopefully we can translate them into Korean.
Yes.
And the reason we did that was because many of our community members might be able to learn this kind of concept through visual form. So in the comic strip is only about 8 frames, right? So they learn that what you can do, some of the strategies when you actually when you're the target of racism. And the second one is when you're a bystander, mm-hmm. because a lot of times we may not be the target, but we happen to be around, right? So what is it that you can do as a bystander? And that is important because we have a lot of non-Asian people around as bystanders. There's a role for them to play, yes. Right? To ensure the safety of everybody around, and to provide support to the person targeted. Mm-hmm. So, and then the third one is our young people. Because, at some point fairly soon, our young people will be going back to school. And so we also want to, equip our young people what to do. Because a lot of young people actually are asking, because they don't know what to do, because their parents also don't quite know how to prepare them. And then the last one we just finished is for people who cannot speak English, or seniors. So they can actually learn some quick tips. And the other is the reporting line. We happen also develop a text message reporting line, which is a quick and easy way for people to use their phone instead of go home and have a computer to report. They can also speak if they want, and it's already in Korean, so it's already in 7 languages. And the reason that we want to spend our focus and energy to let more people know about this, and this is very helpful, is because, first of all, for people who actually is targeted by racist act, it actually can be very traumatizing, and so it is helpful for them to actually break the isolation by actually sharing the experience. So it's actually good for their mental health. And so we want our community to understand that. And so this kind of information is important because ideally people should be going to the police, people should be going to the hate crime unit, but unfortunately many of these entities right now are not equipped to serve all the diverse communities. So it's important for us to collect good information so that we can help those institutions to provide better, more effective protection for our communities in the future, right?
Yes.
So, and then we also hope that this kind of data can help us to formulate policy recommendations so that our government and public institution can improve the way they serve a very diverse citizenry. And so part of what we have to do now is to be prepared to respond when things come up, because for a long time Asian communities have not been engaged in this kind of conversation about discrimination, racism. So I think it's very important now for our community to know that we do have people looking at these issues, and when things happen that we are more ready to respond and in a public way, right? Yeah. So what do you think? You attended the meeting, you had a chance to talk.
That in Canada, prejudice and racism is not acceptable. That this country is made up with a multicultural and multinational ethnicity. So this country, yes, there's indigenous people, there's Caucasians, there's Asians, there's African Canadians. So the country is made up with all different diverse people. They're human beings. If you look under your skin, we all have red blood. We all have the same cells. Everything is made up with same sort of mechanism. So we do not tolerate any kind of racism, discrimination. Everyone's born with the same right, so we should respect that. So that's the message you want to convey. And not only that, we are working with federal government to come up with a policy regime so that it impacts all Canadians, that all lives matters, no matter what.
Part of the reason that we need to be even more diligent is because Canada is known to be the first country in the world to actually have a multiculturalism policy. We have had a charter of rights, to protect people, for more than 40 plus years. We have human rights commission. But then why is it that from time to time you see that things will just flare up and people feel emboldened that they can do these things? And that's because if our government, our public institutions, our system don't take a stand to say that this is wrong, this is unacceptable, we have to change the way we behave, we have to change the way we do things, then people will feel that, well, if our systems are silent, it's okay. So that's why our system can no longer be silent, because by being silent, they continue to feel that they have the backing, right? And that's why, especially, today is June 9th, and so people talking a lot more because of what happened to the Black community about systemic change. So our system have to change. Hopefully, this time, with all these unfortunate things, crisis happening, that maybe people will actually make some real change.
Yes, the movement started with the COVID-19 pandemic. I know we talked about Asian community predominantly, but we want to expand. It's not just Asian community, it's all visual minorities, indigenous communities, Black communities, and different religions and sexual orientations. So we are talking about all human beings in general, that discrimination and racism or any kind of prejudice is not allowed in Canada.
And being minorities ourselves, I think that it's important that we actually work together and support each other and support each other's issue.
You can do a certain act that's not acceptable, but without you actually knowing it, because of your habit and your background. So it's all about really understanding on someone else's shoes and how would they feel if I did this? How would I feel if they did this? So it's vice versa. So really having that mutual understanding that every life matters. Yes.
Yeah. And the Prime Minister actually yesterday talked about implicit bias. So I think people are not just talking and saying, you see the conversation have changed very fast in a short period of time, which is I'm very pleased to see. From saying that, oh, this is wrong, this is on the rise, to now he's saying we need systemic change. We have to be conscious about implicit bias, how we all carry unconscious bias, and need to be more aware. So I think the conversation is going in the right direction, right? So the network, now we have our website, is Act2EndRacism. So if you go to our
right here.
Right.
No, don't worry. Yeah, right here.
Okay.
She'll put subtitles.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And so if you go to our website and follow us on social media, then you will see the different tools and different information. And so if you're a newcomer or a member of the racialized minority community, learn about our network, but also if you do experience racism, it's important you talk to somebody. So whether it's a family member, a friend, or a member of the community, and report to our text message line or online. And the other is do consider calling the police. And I know that there's some trust issues between our community and the police, but if you got hurt, sometimes you should call the police. And maybe when you call the police, if you can have someone to accompany you if you don't speak English or you're not feeling comfortable.
And often those attacks, discrimination happens suddenly. So you're mentally not prepared, you're physically not prepared, and often you will find it dumbfounded, like, what just happened? So my word is that you need to prepare yourself and educate yourself. Know your rights first, so be prepared for that. There are many support groups and support channels and things available for you. So make sure that you have access to that. Don't keep it to yourself, because often when you're attacked, you don't know what to do, so you just kind of let it go. But don't be silent. Speak up. We need to hear for you, and society needs to hear for you. Okay?
Just like what Tristan said, you are in shock. You did not prepare yourself for this. So if you look at the comic strip and some of our resource material, it actually prepare you.
Right.
So when that does, we hope it doesn't happen to you, but when it happens, then at least you may have practice at home.
And do try to avoid physical confrontation.
Yes.
Safety first.
Safe, yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Join us if you want to actually be part of the network. There are opportunity for people to provide input, to the policy discussion, or help us to actually disseminate information, reach out to the community, and so we I think we can benefit from more people helping with the network. We just came together in April, and we received a little bit of government support, support from the Calgary Foundation, from the government recently, but we just came together because there's a need. So for people who are interested in what we're doing, please feel free to join us. And lastly is Hamsa Namida. Thank you for the opportunity.